And I honestly feel it works better than the novels, as the manga is paced better, the changes working for this form of the story, and actually address most of the plot points. The character development is weaker due to lack of space, but I think it makes for a better balance between the main line and what the novels were expanding upon.
Strange, as this manga was also written by Tatsuya Hamazaki. I guess the series just works better in tandem with visual storytelling, and not just text on a page as, well, I'll admit, on the page the story does sound kind of stock.
And I do like the art by Yuzuka Morita. It's pretty vibrant and captures the character designs while transitioning them appropriately to this medium, the lot ending up very expressive. But it also has some things I don't like, such as Haseo being stuck in his rather bland first form, when the iconography of the Terror of Death has always been tied to his third form. Here, it diverges past the battle with Tri-Edge, Raven making itself known very early, and Haseo retaining his abilities from the encounter, Yada showing Ovan's other victims, such as Sakubo, the man choosing to gather the epitaphs that awaken himself to speed up the creation of his key.
The highlight of the book, once more, is the interaction of Haseo and Adelie.
It begins a lot less unintentionally antagonistic or annoying as well, with Adelie actually showing concern for him over it starting out with sermons and evolving from a need of the other's presence. While there is one present, it's in a far different context than the Moontree recruitment message. This Adelie embracing both the people and the fiction of the world. It only fails to get him to open up as it hits the nerve that is Shino, calling up various moments of their time together that inform their relationship in the context of this timeline.
Once more, Roots' failings are fixed in pretty much every other piece of media relating to G.U. Seriously, how do you do that?
Ida PCs are introduced right after this, Bordeaux being the first to show in Indigo Lu, which Kun saves an unawakened Haseo from while flirting with the PK.
And Kun's flirting was pretty much absent from the novels. That explains so much.
Endritz's domination of Alkaid gets better showcased, slamming her into a wall.
Ouch! Makes for a bigger humiliation than just collapsing in a pile at his feet.
And Endritz's mocking gets to a direct confrontation, words from Ovan passed on through Adelie driving him farther and angrier, Skaith awakening before the first volume concludes, which drives Endritz to attack actively, as the Ida's interest is piqued by Skaith after so long only around Maha. Though Izzy's drunk with power from having just awoken, instead of empathizing with Endritz's pain, he mocks it before defeating him. And still drunk in that power, when Adelie tries to open up to him after learning of Shino, he's rather cruel about it too.
This also being present in the novels, sadly, at least occurring in a different order, so her learning of Shino comes later to give context, but she already has that here, which is again leading with striking that nerve.
And it at least follows with him showing he regrets his overreaction. Endritz is found killed by Tri-Edge, his epitaph stolen, forcing Yada to reveal that, in this version of events, Ines was housed by Shino, and thus the reason she was attacked and left comatose.
Which doesn't work. Partly because, well, because of the fuck-ups of Roots, there was very little character shown of her. Thus, it fails to justify the relating connection to the concepts Ines embodies that so much more syncs with Adelie. And partly because this is driving Ovan's antagonist streak higher.
I keep getting the idea that Hamazaki was trying to fix Ovan as the villain of G.U. in the novels, by making his acts more malicious and less justified. Especially since that position is usurped by Sakaki in the games. But honestly, that weakens things a lot, as there was really nothing that needed fixing. Ovan has a great motivation for his actions, and his method of minimalist impact makes him more empathetic and relatable, which is made less effective when you know what he's doing from the outset after learning the mystery. That is not a problem in the games.
Plus it backslides to his game-based motivation, so there's this incongruity between sides of the manga concerning him.
and it seems like it's making Adeli's place in the story superfluous, as now she has less of a reason to be involved in these events. Similarly, because Ovan has Innos already, the general Ida can't claim that to manipulate people's perceptions to trap them in the Ida server, as they do. For at the point they did such, they had yet to learn how to isolate people. Worse, it becomes baffling how later in the manga, she retains her special abilities that were supposed to be tied to the phase. As the Ida server incident begins here, Bordeaux has a scene that does a lot to inform her character and her drive to win that led her to becoming a PK that I like, mainly as most of the exposition about her only happens in the post-game emails and interpreting the subtext of her character. It's more there to give details on the Ida seeds, but still, I like it. Similarly, an encounter with Sakaki leads to Aseo realizing he drove Adeli into danger and begins hunting for her, leading to the second Azure Kite battle. Skaith, Tarvos, and Magus all fighting Azure Kite at once.
The games had a good reason for not doing that, but damn, I wish I had been able to see that animated.
With Kun out after the revelation of the operation folder, it's down to Pai and Haseo to use it to get them all out. Pai insensitive about Adeli's plight, only for her to be Ida's trap, as it's gone straight ahead and infected her. However, due to Aseo missing the full context of Mia's importance in the fight with Endrance, he is wholly unprepared for what he witnesses within. The loneliness of someone who's given everything of herself and had everything taken, nothing given in return. And on top of that pain, the sheer anger she's long suppressed, that in the mainline and novels was torn out and manipulated at another's hands. It hurts. You're the same. You were abandoned, just like I was. What you lost was your very self. This monster is in your very heart. It's part of you, but you didn't choose this emptiness in your heart. I won't tell you to keep trying, because I know trying is what hurts you the most.
Okay, I know it probably wouldn't have fit with the divergences from what formed the root of Adeli's Ida infection and what was necessary to snap her out of her self-loathing, but why wasn't that in the damn games?
This is what makes me forgive the faults in this manga, mainly its ability to properly bridge the story points of the trilogy. It's beautiful imagery like this, conveying the feelings of two people that started off badly, but grew to understand one another the way a few could come to realize, that makes me really like it.
Yeah, I ultimately forgive the botched date, because I accept that it happens before Ryo's ultimate epiphany about himself and gets over Shino.
Yeah, Ryo and Chigusa are shown going on a date at the beginning of Chapter 13. It goes quite disastrously, neither really aligning with the personas we see, and with Shino confirmed having officially let him down about not sharing his feelings upon her awakening, and without the reconnections that allow Haseo to look at things objectively to realize his affections are not true love, he's obviously a bit bitter. Especially it happens not long before this event.
Admittedly, real world versus how we perceive ourselves in a game becomes an applicable context, but for two people that find comfort in being able to express themselves more truly inside of the world, and having come to understand the truths they hide, yeah, no, you missed your chance to make a lot of people happy with that.
Yada's killed as the two achieve acceptance of the other, as is Kun, the last of the avatars thus gained, and Ovan entering his endgame. Each time he gathers a phase, trying to cure Aina, but to no effect. But their encounter is once more far weaker, as this Haseo has yet to undergo the development that made him a better man, raging at Ovan in the same way the novelization depicts, that just seems completely juvenile, especially when he attacks Ovan at the end of explaining why he did all this. thinking Aina is just another delusion Ida is using to manipulate Ovan. He's wrong, of course, but the strike triggers the rebirth nonetheless, and wipes away all of the epitaphs but Skaith, Ovan dying in the act. Both Aina and Shino understanding why in this version, and Shino revealing to Rio that she let Ovan kill her originally, as the love she feels for Ovan is the same as Haseo's for her, unrequited.
But that's only the first half of the story.
See, the second half chronicles the true villain of G.U+, Kazumi. Kazumi is a former member of the Revive Aura Plan, and is a complete lunatic, having salvaged Jotaro Amagi's dummy epitaph and, well, taken over the world.
Of course!
He's done it with the consent of CC Corp, and intends to start the RA plan all over again.
I keep getting the feeling, considering his blatant insanity and his involvement and in-depth familiarity with the original project, that Kazumi was potentially Jotaro Amagi himself, especially considering his showcase disdain for Junban Soya. He's sadly not, which could have made the book stronger in my opinion.
His mad ambitions from restarting the Revive Aura plan are, of course, what you would expect. Recreate the god of the world through the Epitaph PCs, use his dummy programs to bind it to his will, and through that become a digital god.
Now, the real world is being ruled by the online world!
And he can do this in this reality because every computer on the planet uses the same operating system after recovery from the Pluto's Kiss virus, AI's ability to manipulate data, and the black box files having already shown this effect the uniformity has. It's why Sakage's ambition to do the same through Ida wasn't so ridiculous. It still was ridiculous, but it was at least justified in the narrative.
He attacks Haseo and, using his dummy epitaph's version of Data Drain, manages to steal Skaith, Haseo only surviving thanks to the efforts of Zelkova, which recovers what data he can, and upgrades him into X form, once more a hacked player character. From this point it becomes a race against time, both to save Ovan from those that would straight up erase his existence, and to prevent Kazumi from forging a new aura. For Kazumi doesn't care about the danger that would come from the birth of a new Kubiya that Ovan had already planned for. The X-Form can counter the false uses of data drain and override the system lockouts, allowing them to fight to Kazumi, who tries to justify himself by tearing them all down, and has likewise manipulated Pi into collaborating with him by throwing her brother's memory under a bus. It doesn't work, but the X-Form can't match a true epitaph, Haseo only being saved with the revelation that the freed epitaphs have chosen new users, Innis returning home.
Which comes completely out of nowhere, especially since Shino was the chosen bearer this time. Why change it when you were going to undo that change later?
Kazumi succeeds and Kubiya emerges, devouring the false god in his hubris, and raining devastation to the network. Aina reveals the epitaph so they can call Aura in hopes of ending Kubiya, but God once more is a dick and fails to intervene to do more than show them the way and return what was taken from them, leaving it up to the will of the players to achieve their miracle. This part of the manga actually gets really good, each of them in turn exposing the truth of themselves, both light and shadow, to carve their way to Kubiya, Haseo and Adelie sharing another moment as they near it, Haseo telling her what she means to him. The pair take on Kubiya together, it ultimately taking Haseo to dive into Kazumi's memory of Project G.U to carve out his divinity and thus delete Kubiya. It's an act that almost makes Haseo lose everything he is, his memories torn away once more, only to be rescued in turn by Ovan. And from there, once more, it's Haseo that puts the anti-existence down, carving Kazumi out of the system.
And of course, the book ends on the final offense of the Roots line corrected.
In that there's an actual feeling of closure here for the cast beyond the reunion of Ovan, Aina, and Shino, as the World R2 returns to operating status. The final words of the manga are reaffirmance of the bond that's been crafted over its events.
Which leaves 4, which is honestly my favorite of the books.
4 Comas, if you're not aware, are those 4-panel vertical comic strips you see pop up on the odd publication. They're mainly meant as comedic shorts between events, not unlike a gag-a-day strip in the newspapers such as the ever-awesome Garfield from Jim Davis.
No relation. But this book isn't just them, it's all the other manga-styled short segments that are meant to be comedic or parody-ish that CyberConnect released over time as well. It's honestly the most baffling thing that ends up being imported, and yet I love it.
Though it's kind of ironic I consider it my favorite of the G.U. related books, because I kind of find the first segment of the book terrible, as those strips are about Kite and Black Rose being active players during the World War II, and pretty much usurping Haseo's role in the story.
And pretty much lampshading why no .hack property should have its storyline coincide with the presence of main characters from preceding concluded stories, only supporting ones, as they would take away from the story being told with the current starring characters by us wanting to see them featured instead. Ah, crap.
To be honest, G.U. didn't handle that the best either, looking at you, Pyros and Natsume, but the ones they did more prominently include in the storyline, Kaoru, Katsumi, Takumi, and especially Ryo, were used excellently by making those that were ancillary the new focus, or important to the proceedings, and these strips kind of undo that in concept. The interactions are actually pretty entertaining, and it's not that they're not funny, it's just I feel they're missing the point. It doesn't feel natural to the characters to do this sort of thing. Kite, for example, consistently acts like an asshole. There's a difference between serious or driven characters having fun in silly situations, and appearing to mock the serious situations entirely. But I can at least have fun with it, as it's meant to be a what-if series of vignettes. And honestly, I normally love that kind of thing, as the good ones either show respect to the material, or point out the really obvious flaws in it in ways that should have been caught. Though neither really happens here.
Plus it brought the whole Kite versus Haseo arguments back up in the fandom, with this as key evidence in their cases. Yeah, it got stupid.
But the strips aren't just limited to the G.U. timeline. It also goes back to the tetralogy as well, which makes it less mean-spirited than I'm probably inferring. Pico's story, however, is what made me love the book. Sometime after Shino's awakening and before the wedding event, Adelie gets the idea in her head that, with all the other women in Haseo's life, there may come the point where she won't be noticed again. Ignored once more, once someone else better has come along. As such, she ropes Pai into helping her, wanting what she and Yara supposedly have. While Pai thinks she just needs to look at herself and decide how she truly wants to act, the whole be yourself and have them accept you for you thing, Chigusa takes it in the context of create a new character, Pico, so as to spend more time with Haseo through the canard newbie induction services, which tangentially annoys the crap out of Alkaid.
Because though it's not as justified in this story as Haseo Adelie, there is still a large fanbase for the ship.
However, as Haseo escorts the disguised Adelie to their first field, she understands the truth she had worried over was misplaced. What field did they go to, you might ask?
Isn't it amazing? This is number 15 among my all-time recommended places. We're both here, right now, living in the world.
And learning this makes Adelie lament that, well, she screwed up, wanting the praises she hears as this character while she is herself. But as she resolves to reveal this deception, going to a high-level field, Haseo lets slip that, well, he already knew, echoing once more Adelie's words.
Well, I guess it's because you're still you.
Huh?
It's true that I didn't recognize you at first, but soon after that, I realized it was you.
Why the hell wasn't that in the games? The dialogue for Adelie's wedding event isn't that good, and this beats that by leaps and bounds. especially with the callbacks.
To me, it's once more reaffirming that the majority of CyberConnect shipped the two characters from how the story was constructed, being another piece in the evolving relationship of two people whose understanding of each other runs deeper than words. Go-Go, the world that follows it, chronicles Gaspard's early days in the world in a more comedic light that fixed his character overall, showcasing some of his and Syllabus's misadventures, leading into how they hooked up with Kun and formed Canard. While the segments are meant to be nothing but comedy, I really appreciate the structure and lore building for them. Even the artist and writer, responsible for a number of the environments and creature designs of the games, getting in on it.
These are the two segments most people consider canon to the series, by them expounding upon the main events over those that formed through Divergence, even with the tongue-in-cheek tone, as they still perfectly encapsulate aspects of the characters. Chigusa is the kind of person to worry over that kind of thing, and go to those lengths to stand out. And Syllabus and Gaspard are in the game for fun, so showing how they had fun before meeting Aseo works great.
The book is then concluded with more shorts, one set focused on Gabi trying to get attention, and another the reactions of various manga makers to the G.U games themselves, and their opinions on varying aspects with a lighthearted tone to them.
Reviews in comic form. That sounds familiar, honestly.
Ultimately, none of the books were quite able to bother the lightning strike of brilliance that I consider to be the main games. But I do recommend at the very least Alcor and 4 due to the book ending present there. G.U. Plus isn't bad at all, with the divergent flavor congealing in its own way, but Cell requires knowledge on the lore to fully make sense that's not really gotten into in those books, and the more I look back on the novelization, the less I end up liking the more it goes on.
But they're all better than Roots, which is, in its own way, a reception bonus. Try and find them if you're curious, as it's probably still less expensive than trying to secure copies of the games right now. And then there was one. Next time, the final video I will be making on .hack GU, with the review of its film adaptation, Trilogy. And you know what? This is a legitimate contender for best filmed adaptation of a video game. I should probably find a way to tell my past self that, so I would have actually watched it sooner instead of having it sit on my shelf for years.